The winter of 2022 in Ukraine was harsh, with the cold winds biting through layers of clothing and the snow covering the ground like a shroud. The streets of Kiev, once bustling with life, now echoed with the distant rumble of artillery and the wailing of air raid sirens. The war had turned cities into battlegrounds and homes into ruins. Yet amidst this chaos, stories of resilience and humanity shone through the darkness. In a small village near the front lines, 24-year-old Andriy stood guard at a makeshift checkpoint. A former university student majoring in engineering, he had never imagined his life would take such a turn. The invasion had swept through his world like a hurricane, forcing him to trade textbooks for a rifle. His green fatigues were ill-fitted, and his hands bore the calluses of endless hours of work, but his eyes held the resolve of a man defending his homeland. The checkpoint was nothing more than a barricade of sandbags and steel scraps, yet it was a symbol of defiance. Alongside Andriy were volunteers from all walks of life. Oleksiy, a retired teacher who shared tales of history during quiet moments, Mykola, a mechanic who could repair anything with wheels, and Kateryna, a nurse who had turned her skills from healing to saving lives under fire. They were an unlikely band of defenders, united by a singular purpose. One frosty evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Andriy heard the distant hum of an approaching vehicle. Gripping his rifle tightly, he signaled to the others. The vehicle stopped a few meters away, and a man stepped out with his hands raised. He was a civilian, carrying a young girl wrapped in a thick blanket. The man's face was gaunt, his eyes hollow from sleepless nights. "Please," he said in Ukrainian, his voice trembling. "My daughter is sick. We need to reach the hospital in the city." Kateryna stepped forward, her medical instincts kicking in. She gently unwrapped the blanket to reveal the pale face of a child burning with fever. After a quick examination, she turned to Andriy. "She needs antibiotics," Kateryna said. "We have to let them through." Andriy hesitated. The checkpoint had strict orders to stop any unauthorized movement, as enemy forces had been using civilian vehicles to infiltrate their lines. But looking into the man's desperate eyes, Andriy knew he couldn't turn them away. "Go," Andriy said, stepping aside. "But be careful. The roads aren't safe." The man nodded, tears streaming down his face, as he whispered his thanks. Andriy watched as the vehicle disappeared into the night, a small act of mercy in a world torn apart by violence. The following days brought little respite. The village was subjected to relentless shelling, and the defenders were pushed to their limits. Supplies were scarce, and exhaustion weighed heavily on everyone. Yet, amidst the destruction, the villagers refused to abandon their homes. They cooked meals for the fighters, shared whatever they had, and stood as a testament to the unbreakable spirit of their people. One night, during a rare moment of calm, Andriy found himself sitting by a small fire with Oleksiy and Kateryna. The teacher's voice carried a story from Ukraine's past, a tale of resistance against invaders centuries ago. "Our ancestors fought for this land," Oleksiy said, his voice filled with pride. "They stood their ground, just as we do now. History will remember this fight, and it will remember us." Andriy listened, his heart swelling with a mixture of sorrow and determination. He thought of his family, who had fled to a safer region. He hadn't seen them in months, but he carried their memory with him, a beacon of hope in the darkest times. The war had a way of blurring days into a relentless cycle of survival, but one morning brought an unexpected event. A stray dog, skinny and shivering, wandered into the checkpoint. Mykola, the mechanic, took it upon himself to care for the animal, sharing scraps of food and naming it Zirka, meaning star. The dog became a source of comfort, its presence a reminder of the simple joys that still existed amidst the chaos. As winter gave way to spring, the village became a focal point in the conflict. Enemy forces launched a major offensive, determined to break through the defenders' lines. The battle was fierce, with tanks rumbling through the streets and the sky lit by the fiery arcs of rockets. Andriy and his comrades fought with everything they had, their courage unwavering despite the overwhelming odds. During the height of the battle, Andriy found himself pinned down in a damaged house with Kateryna and Mykola. The walls shook with each explosion, and the air was thick with dust and smoke. Mykola worked furiously to rig a homemade explosive to halt an advancing tank, while Kateryna tended to a wounded villager who had sought shelter. "We can't hold them much longer," Andriy said, his voice strained. "But we can't let them take the village." "Then we fight," Kateryna replied, her eyes fierce. "For every life here, we fight." The defenders launched a desperate counterattack, using their intimate knowledge of the terrain to outmaneuver the enemy. Andriy led a small group to flank the opposing forces, their actions disrupting the assault and buying precious time. Mykola's explosive destroyed the tank, a deafening blast that seemed to shake the earth itself. When the dust settled, the village still stood. The enemy had retreated, leaving behind wreckage and silence. The cost, however, was immense. Many had fallen, their sacrifices etched into the fabric of the land they had fought to protect. In the aftermath, Andriy walked through the village, his steps heavy with grief and exhaustion. Yet, as he looked around, he saw signs of hope. Villagers emerged from their shelters, helping one another rebuild. Children played with Zirka, their laughter a stark contrast to the devastation around them. It was a reminder that even in the face of unimaginable loss, life endured. Months later, Andriy received a letter from his family. His mother wrote of their pride in him, of their prayers for his safety, and of their longing for the day they could be reunited. He clutched the letter tightly, a lifeline to a future beyond the war. The story of the village's defense spread, becoming a symbol of Ukraine's resilience. Andriy and his comrades were hailed as heroes, though they carried the weight of their actions with humility. For them, the fight was not about glory, but about protecting the people and the land they loved. Years later, when the war had finally ended, Andriy returned to the village. The scars of battle remained, but so did the spirit of its people. Standing by the rebuilt checkpoint, he placed a hand on Zirka's head, the dog now old but still loyal. He thought of those who had fought beside him, their sacrifices forever remembered. "We endured," Andriy whispered, "and we will continue to endure." The tale of the village and its defenders became a part of Ukraine's history, a testament to the strength and resilience of its people. It was a story passed down through generations, a reminder that even in the darkest times, hope and courage could prevail.